Welcome to another edition of Talk to the Experts. Today we're going to talk about the link, and I'll explain with the help of Sandra Anderson, the Program Director with the Saskatchewan SPCA, and Leanne Sillers, Animal Safekeeping Coordinator with, again, the Saskatchewan SPCA. So good day to both of you.
Good day.
Sandra, I'll start with you. Let's talk about the Saskatchewan SPCA. How is the Saskatchewan SPCA different from the other, local SPCAs that are out there throughout Saskatchewan?
That's right. The Saskatchewan SPCA is an animal welfare organization, and we've been around for, nearly 90 years now. Our role is a little bit different than most local shelters in that we don't operate an animal shelter, so we don't provide adoption services for animals, for example. We're working in the areas of education and trying to, prevent animal abuse and neglect through a variety of programs and services that we offer.
And so whereas the locals have the shelters, you're the advocates?
I think what would be fair to say that we're operating more on a provincial level, and we have a variety of programs and services that we're trying to institute that assist animals on a broader scale. The local shelters do a fantastic job of rehoming animals, and we're very supportive of the work they do, and we work closely with a lot of those SPCAs and humane societies throughout the province. Our role is more maybe bigger picture, trying to find ways to help animals and people. So, for example, in the area of animal safekeeping programs, we have a program to provide to help with the veterinary care costs for retired police dogs.
Oh.
We have a program that we're working on to register rescue groups that are operating in the province. It's presently, anyone can say they're a rescue group. We're trying to help them do a better job of caring for homeless animals. So those are some of the areas that we're working in, and just in addition to the whole area of humane education, trying to make people aware of the many benefits that animals provide to humans. I mean, it's sometimes called the human-animal bond, and we want to make sure that we humans are treating our animals as well as we possibly can.
And, of course, today the message we want to get out surrounds those two words that I had mentioned before, the link. I'm going to read a quote here, and the quote comes from Phil Arkow, who is the coordinator of the National Link Coalition. He says, "When animals are abused, people are at risk. When people are abused, animals are at risk." And that's a little bit of the genesis of what we are going to talk about today. Leanne Sillers, the Animal Safekeeping Coordinator with the Saskatchewan SPCA. We are talking, when we talk about the link between abuse of animals and abuse of humans, I guess, aren't we?
Absolutely. So we know there's a strong correlation between domestic violence, animal abuse, child abuse, and elder abuse. One is not happening in isolation of the other. Usually if there is animal abuse, it's a strong indicator that there is more going on in the home than just that, or vice versa, right? So that's what we're looking at, and trying to alleviate pet ownership as a barrier for people, women, or men leaving violent relationships.
I even saw a media report just a couple of days ago, as a matter of fact, where the Saskatchewan SPCA is hoping that when the Board of Police Commissioners with the City of Saskatoon chooses a new police chief, that might be one of the criteria, the understanding of that link, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we know that Saskatchewan has the highest rate of domestic violence. We're double the national average, so you can't tell me that some of those people don't have pets. Absolutely they do. And it's just sometimes not on the radar. So we're trying to bring it to light to say, hey, you might see an animal that's outside that's being neglected, that's being abandoned, that's being harmed. That might be a sooner opportunity or earlier preventative type thing to say, we need to make a call and get something going, get some assistance to this family.
Leanne Sillers, Animal Safekeeping Coordinator, and Sandra Anderson, the Program Director of the Saskatchewan SPCA. There was a recent conference, there was a recent report out that was conducted at the behest of the Saskatchewan SPCA and one other organization.
We worked with Stops to Violence and the Provincial Association of Transition Houses and Services of Saskatchewan. And
in a nutshell, the report talks about that link, but it also, I think it's interesting how much of the report talks about how animals are used to keep somebody who is suffering from domestic violence home.
Absolutely. Right. If you know that you're trying to plan to leave and you have nowhere to take your pet, it's another barrier, right? Money is an issue, not having anywhere to go. So a pet or a family pet especially becomes, what am I supposed to do with this animal? And in a lot of those cases, the animals are being away by the abuser very intentionally to a way to control, more control to say, if I'm doing this to Fluffy, then, this is what's going to happen to you kind of thing. And having that threat over the victim's head is just, if I go, what's he going to do to the animal?
Wow.
And I mean, there's a lot of people, you talk to anybody that has a pet, that human-animal bond is so, so strong. And, and especially in the time of crisis, right? You need that support, right? That unconditional love and support. I mean, we know that it reduces your blood pressure by petting an animal. We know that it increases your serotonin and dopamine levels, right? That you feel better.
Yeah.
To know that your animal is left behind to somebody that, can and might be abusing or has abused yourself, your children, and the animal. I mean, we know that 78% of respondents that have gone to shelters have said the perpetrators have abused their animals. And 75% of that has been done in front of the children.
Oh. And again, to have to leave the animal behind, and you have to, right? You're in the midst of your own chaos and violence, so you have to get out there and to leave the animal, the psychological struggle, the emotional struggle that creates, on top of everything else.
On top of everything else.
That's a tremendous strain.
68% of the women that had entered transitional houses had disclosed that the perpetrator had abused their animal, and of that, 75% of that occurred in front of the children. Okay,
all right. So I'm talking with Sandra Anderson, the program director of the Saskatchewan SPCA, and Leanne Sillers, the animal safekeeping coordinator. I talked about the conference in Regina. I guess it'd be about a month and a half ago, and somewhere within that. What was the intended purpose of the conference, and who was going to that conference?
We had people representing both the animal welfare sector and the human services sector. And it was a great opportunity to get everyone together in the same room and talk about ways that we can work together. We don't have to work in these independent silos where animal welfare people just talk to animal welfare people. Mm-hmm. We need to be having those conversations between both sectors and finding ways to work together. People and animal are being abused, and let's look at ways that we can work together more effectively to help everyone involved.
And so, that's the goal, I think, of our conversation here today as well, is to find, when you know that there's a situation like that, where can you turn to? Now, we also know that fulfilling the goal of this is going to take a whole lot of resources, and so it's going to be a financial drain on your organization, the Saskatchewan SPCA. And so if anybody out there who has a heart for dogs, a heart for cats, a heart for cattle, want to help, there is a way to help. You can go to the website, sspca.ca, and look for the Support Us link on that website. And you'll be able to make a donation right there online. When we come back, we'll talk about the solutions that we can work towards in terms of finding a place to place those animals. But we'll also talk about the challenges, because we're not just talking urban, we're talking rural Saskatchewan as well, where we have bigger animals and bigger challenges. Sandra Anderson and Leanne Sillers, both with the Saskatchewan SPCA, are here as we talk to the experts about the link on 650 CKOM. We're back with Talk to the Experts. I am speaking with Sandra Anderson, Program Director of Saskatchewan SPCA, and Leanne Sillers, the Animal Safekeeping Coordinator at the Saskatchewan SPCA as well. And we're talking about the link. This is a study that has been conducted that shows the challenges that those who face domestic violence also face when it comes to their beloved animals. Just before the break, we talked about how many of those who are perpetrators in domestic violence will use the animals to make sure that the victim of that domestic violence stays at home. Leanne, let's go over that a little bit just to refresh and let people who have just joined us understand what this means. So I have a pet in the house. I'm a victim of domestic violence and I want to leave, but the perpetrator is going to use that animal to make me stay.
Absolutely. So could be doing something very abusive, physical abuse towards the animal, and use threatening, saying, if you leave, this is what's going to happen to the animal. Or if you leave, this is what's going to happen to you, type thing.
Okay.
So it's, like I said, another barrier that the victims of domestic violence face on top of everything else, that it's a challenge to leave an abusive relationship. It's not just, why don't you just leave? Because it is not that simple.
And as we've been discussing that, I think everybody's mind is going towards a house in a city where we have a beautiful pet or two pets. But there are people who own farms and ranches and the like who have other animals, and bigger animals, cows and horses. And that, too, has become used as a weapon, right?
Absolutely. I know in my previous job, she had a herd of cattle, and she was devastated that she had to leave the cattle behind because she knew how he was treating the animals, and and also the finances that are involved, that she's leaving this ranch for her own safety, right? And now the monetary value of that cattle. So it's it becomes very intertwined and very difficult to make these decisions.
The solution is simple. The solution is to find a place for that animal that is safe.
Right.
It's simple to say, but it's
Right.
not simple to do.
Right.
There are places, though, in Saskatchewan where there are organizations that do help you with that, right?
Right. So both Regina Humane Society and Saskatoon SPCA do have, I'll refer to it as formal animal safekeeping programs.
Okay.
And my suggestion is that if anybody needs assistance, to give them a call directly. But I know in the other parts of the province, the smaller centers, the humane societies and SPCAs are amazing to work with, and give them a call. And it might be a very informal program, but they will do their best to make sure the animal is safe, that you can take your pet there, and make sure that they're okay while you and your children get to where you need to be safe as well.
Right.
So, and know that animal is well taken care of.
Leanne Sillers and Sandra Anderson with the Saskatchewan SPCA. Sandra, that's great that we've got it in Saskatoon and in Regina, and we've got the informal programs in other centers. There's probably, though, a need, right, for more organizations to jump on board with this?
Definitely, we need to expand the resources that are available. This is a huge problem, and it's not that any one organization can address this problem on their own. The goal is to try to find ways to work together more efficiently and more effectively. We need law enforcement on board. We need Crown
Right.
prosecutors. We need people in doctors, nurses, other people in hospitals that are seeing the victims of violence. We need them to be asking the questions about what's really going on here. And of course, we need the animal welfare organizations to be involved. We need vets and vet techs to be involved to, and again, ask some questions. If they're seeing suspicious injuries in an animal, is there something else going on in the family? And of course, the frontline workers in domestic violence shelters, social workers, are integral to all of this, because they're the ones that asking the questions and doing the animal doing the safety planning with the victims.
Yeah. And yeah, you're right. I wonder if they do. Well, I'm sure you're trying to get all of them to ask that question. Do you have a pet?
And we've been working really hard since I've been in this position since March 1st. That's one thing that I've tried to get out to the transition houses and here in the city and around the province, as well as some domestic violence, the court case workers and the people that are doing the frontline work, to ask that question: do you have a pet? The answer is yes. Okay, so are you concerned about their safety? And if so, then the pet is included in the safety planning. So, we, in working with victims of domestic violence, it would always be talking about, have an extra set of keys, have your cell phone, have a cell phone charged or charger, or important papers. So now it's saying, okay, have a bag of food for your animal.
Right.
Have a favorite toy for the animal, have their leash, have their collar. For a cat, maybe a cat carry or something like that. Any papers to prove ownership, right? So it could be as simple as, I have a Walmart receipt for dog food, right? Who is the primary caregiver of this animal type thing, or a vet bill. in your name to say, I own Fluffy.
Okay.
And this is,
Yeah.
right. So encouraging them to ask those questions. And I find too, when people are asked about their animals, they will talk. You know, I mean, they will just start talking, and you'll get a lot more information from them and know more what's going on. They might be more inclined to say, this is what he is doing to Fluffy. They might not want to say, this is what he is doing to me. So.
And so that's all and can be in place. And I'm going to say rather easily. But when it comes to farm animals, you've got such a bigger challenge there when you've got 300 head of cattle.
Right. I know there are organizations that if you have the money, you can transport the cattle. You know, if you don't, it is a challenge. It's, you know, and we're trying to wade our way through this to figure out what is sort of the best options, or giving people options when they are in that situation in rural Saskatchewan. We have a large province to cover, so.
I can't imagine leaving my dog if I was in that situation. And knowing that the dog could be in danger, especially if that has been threatened by the perpetrator. That would keep me in the house. And I
Absolutely.
know that. And I'm sure have you talked to women or guys who have actually had to make that decision?
Absolutely.
It's got to be heart-wrenching.
It is. I agree with you. I have a golden retriever, and I mean, I can't imagine. I wouldn't imagine leaving him knowing that he would be in harm's way. And it's, you know, when they know that there's a plan in place or there's options, it provides them with some hope to say, okay, I know that I can put this animal somewhere and know that they're okay, they're out of harm's way until I get my stuff kind of figured out as best I can.
Sandra Anderson, the program director, this is all great, but it takes money. And so obviously you could use some help there.
And we really invite the people of Saskatchewan to, help out in any way they can. But in particular, financial donations are always welcome. They can see our website at sspca.ca and check the section under Support Us. And they can specify that their donation is going towards animal safekeeping programs or any other area of interest. But in particular, I think this one's a really compelling need for the entire province. And we certainly hope that the warm and kind and generous people of the province are supportive of this.
Sandra Anderson, the program director of the Saskatchewan SPCA, and Leanne Sillers, the animal safekeeping coordinator with the Saskatchewan SPCA as well. Thank you both. And I hope we keep talking about this so more and more people learn about this and get involved. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Talk to the Experts with the Saskatchewan SPCA on 650 CKOM.